right. Hello, AHS, and welcome back to AHS Perspectives. In this segment, we'll be discussing ADHD awareness in light of ADHD Awareness Month coming to a close. Today, we are joined by Mr. Honeywell. Mr. Honeywell is a social science teacher here at Alameda High. And our other guest is Thomas. Thomas is a senior student at Alameda High. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll start with you, Tom, and just going to ask you what it's like for you as a student with ADHD here at Alameda High, and how do you handle that?
It's definitely interesting. The struggles with ADHD there's differences and similarities compared to struggles with other students, because a lot of the main thing that's the issue is procrastination, right? Is that I never feel motivated to do something, so it's always pushed off until the end and then rushed or not even completed. And that is a struggle that a lot of students experience as well. So it's tough to differentiate what is ADHD and what is just a general student difficulty. But I think that the other parts of ADHD are what pushes it over the top and makes it something that needs to be accommodated for in 504s or talking with your teachers or whatever. This main struggle that I experience is the lack of focus, I would say, especially in the classroom, because everything we're learning in the classroom relates to the homework. And if I'm not paying attention in the classroom, I'm not picking up everything. And then when I go to do the homework, I don't know what I'm doing, so it's even less motivation to even start or try and figure out what I'm doing. So it's just this whole chain. It's this cycle that kind of starts small but snowballs out. And that's the main difficulty, I would say, with that.
And then any advice for those struggling with ADHD?
Definitely reach out. Talk to your teachers, talk to your counselor, talk to your parents. The best way that you're going to be able to get through it and manage some of the difficulty is having support systems and having help. And it's a scary thing to start talking about it. Definitely when I was first realizing the issue, I didn't want to be known as the guy that was struggling or considered stupid or whatever. But it really does help. Talking to your counselor, getting a 504, making sure your teachers know that you're not just dismissing them entirely. And that it's your thing and not them is the main thing I would say. Just reach out to your trusted adults. They're definitely going to help you, and don't worry about being judged or whatever.
Yeah. And also another thought I had is this doesn't just go for people with ADHD. It's more of just a focus and motivation thing in general, right?
Totally.
Because I was thinking well, what if I struggle with focus and motivation, but I don't have ADHD? Then what do I do if I'm not valid enough to have that label, But it goes for everybody.
Totally, I agree. And maybe you wouldn't get a 504 if you don't have diagnosed ADHD, but still talking to your teachers, because at least here, every teacher that I've had has been great about just accommodating the students' needs, which has been super helpful. So even if you don't have a label or anything, I don't love the labels because it feels like you have to put yourself in a box, and it kind of generalizes what's different for everybody. But also I recognize the fact that it's really important for some people to have labels so that they can get a grasp or a concept of what's going on inside of you. So I think that there's good and bads to labels, but if you don't have labels, there's still ways to help yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and Mr. Honeywell, I was going to ask you how you deal with ADHD in the classroom as a teacher.
It definitely varies from student to student. Everyone has, different experiences. Some people really can't focus in the class, but once they get out and all of these stimuli really slows down, they don't have a problem. Others the class should be where they'd be able to focus because their outside world's even more chaos. So when it comes to dealing with ADHD, a lot of I'll give directions hey, get out your binders. On the board it'll be get your binders out for the warm up. And I'll also walk around, do you have your binder out? Where's your binder? Get your binder out. Where's your binder? What's that? What is that? What are you even doing? Trying to bring people back, because everyone's just all over the place. So just continually going through, knowing that everyone's experience is different. You never know where someone's coming from just that morning. Something may have triggered something for someone. So being patient with them all the time and with myself, which is usually why I do my best to keep my cool in the class, because in the end, you never know what's happening with someone in that moment. So keeping that in mind, that I'm not experiencing their experiences, is always big. As far as like doing work and turning in work late and things like that, I don't mind late work at all. Learning is learning.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to occur rigidly on my timeline, but
Yeah.
it does need to happen in order to make progress. So there does come certain points where it's like, all right, I gave you that week and a half, or we have a big unit test coming up. That's great, and you can turn in stuff for full credit, but it's really going to be a hindrance if you sit down to take this test and go, oh man,
Yeah.
I haven't read 2/3 of this and I don't know what we're doing. Like, that means you didn't pay attention in class, you didn't do any of the work. Like, you have to have a certain amount to keep moving forward, because just like math, where if you don't know certain formulas, you can't keep moving forward.
Yeah,
so you have
totally.
to have some expectations for that. So,
And it's hard to
and
like
it's
draw a line.
and
as
it's
well.
a learning process too. If you
Yeah.
have ADHD, you're having to learn to cope with these sorts of things.
Mhm.
And so, challenging yourself with, I will get this done. Damn, this is hard.
Yeah.
I still got to, what would, still got to get it done. And
Yeah.
so really trying to push yourself to get used to fighting through that apathy and that procrastination. I was amazing at procrastination in high school. It was
Yeah.
impeccable.
Uh-huh.
But I had to learn and figure out how to stop doing that so that I could make some academic progress in my life.
Yeah.
And it took me a while. But yeah, so just being patient and
Mhm.
trying to progress. If things
Yeah.
aren't too far behind, like, I'm always willing to work with someone. And even if you don't have ADD or any other problems like that,
Yeah.
life crops up on you,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you may be having a hard time, you may have lost a loved one somewhere in like the East Coast, and there's like, I
Yeah.
don't know who to talk to, but I just can't focus this week, like, I'm having a real hard time. Just talk with your teachers. Like, everyone's willing to work with you and listen, and we all need exceptions sometimes.
Yeah.
I like the patience part. I think that's a huge thing, because part of what's demoralizing is when you don't give yourself the ability to make mistakes, is that when you feel like you're not making progress, you kind of shut down, and realizing that it's a journey and that you're going to take a couple steps back sometimes, but it's about like taking 2 steps forward and then a step back, so that you're always moving forward in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
I think that's a super important piece to kind of coping with struggles in general, not even just with ADHD, just in life, is that realizing that it's all a process and trusting that.
Yeah, putting perfection on a pedestal is not healthy, because then
Totally.
you don't know how to
Yeah.
deal with failure, which
Yeah.
is the best way to grow.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the stimuli too, is that also depends on, not depending on the person, but also depending on the day, is where like some things really change. Is that there's times in class where like it's the same class every day, but one day I go and like I'm so bored because nothing is happening, and one day I go and everything is happening like 10 times louder in my head and I can't like focus on anything. It's understanding that it's not going to be the same every day, and that what helps is structure and scheduling, that, or for me at least, is that understanding that if I try to create more rigid deadlines in my life outside of school, that school is going to become a little bit easier to manage. And that's where this is a weird thing to say, but I like the school year because it gives me a place to be for 6 or 7 hours a day.
Some structure.
Right, exactly. Whereas like in summer or on breaks, that's where it really gets bad with like summer assignments and break assignments, where it's all on that Sunday, because there's no structure. There's no like, sometimes I'm riding the high of being at school and like, oh, I'm feeling productive. I'm just going to get all my work done now. And that doesn't happen in breaks. And there's these like spells that you got to like weave yourself into. So I think that keeping stimulated is a good thing, but not too much.
Any strategies to that? Like specific strategies?
I've been a huge fan of Rubik's Cubes recently, because it's something to do. It's like the multitasking effect, is that the other part of my brain that still feels like it needs to get stimulated is being stimulated while I'm doing that. But I'm also like, it keeps me in the present, which allows me to focus more in class when I'm just like either trying to solve it or just like moving it. And I've also discovered classical music when I'm doing work, because the words don't interfere with like your thoughts, but it scratches the part of your brain that feels like it wants to do something else. So it like you get super locked in. It's like when I've had big projects or big assignments, like I've just gone on YouTube and looked at like the 7-hour classical music compilations.
Yeah, I'll play that when I'm grading.
Yeah, totally, exactly. And it just like the silence is what makes you think that you need to be doing something else, and the classical music like cuts that out.
Yeah.
Those are the two main things: having something to do with your hands when you're not doing something with your hands in class, and then having some sort of external stimuli that's like not impeding but like satisfying the part of the brain.
Do you have any specific strategies in the classroom for your students? Or?
In the classroom? Well, like you were saying, you found that the Rubik's Cube works for you. And whether you're just flipping it around while listening or you're actively trying to solve it but still probably listening as you're doing that because that part of your brain needs to be stimulated. Everyone else can hopefully find their key that helps them come a little bit closer. Like, and it's always going to be trial and error. Sometimes you're going to try something and it just fully removes you from the situation. But I mean, even like as a teacher, so like, I'm trying to figure out how to stay focused because I have a couple of kids that sit there and flip Rubik's Cubes while listening. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're doing. Cool. And so I'm like, good, keep it out, keep the cube out, keep it going. Yeah, but some others are like, and they're just staring at their hands and they're clearly not present. I'm like, that tool is not working for you.
Yeah.
So for everyone else out there, find your strategy. Just trial and error, experimentation. Something's gonna help you a little bit more, and it's a process.
Totally.
And just because you find it doesn't mean you've perfected it. So you got to keep working with it and learning how to use it in different classes because the way you listen in math and the way you might listen in history are probably very different.
Totally.
Yeah. So you might need different tools for different places.
It's definitely a process too. I think I've spent way too much money on Amazon, like just finding things throughout, like probably since like 5th or 6th grade. And I also, there's a testament to having it be different in every class, because I've found that the classes that have a more open discussion oriented thing it's a little bit easier to be engaged because you're thinking, oh, when can I answer this question? It helps if you're more like outgoing like I am, where I'm like, oh, I want to like learn about this and I want to participate. But having the discussion that involves the students instead of just having like being lectured, that's what I've found has been most helpful for me without any tools, is the idea of like, if I'm involved, I'm going to be more participatory and focused.
I was thinking back to what you were saying. Do you ever find it maybe frustrating or like difficult when you see a student struggling, you care about that student and their focus and their effort? Do you ever feel sort of out of control in maybe like a negative way?
Rarely.
Okay.
I mean, I'll see my frustrations cropping up sometimes, and I definitely can identify it because there are students who I know are brilliant, but they just can't keep it together, And so that can be difficult, but I mean, what, am I going to yell at them?
Yeah.
Then where have we gone? Now we've just, destroyed our relationship that we already have, and then Honeywell's yelling at me, and now they're having a bad day, and they're going to take that with them for the rest of the day, maybe the rest of the week. Yeah. So, I try and, whenever I'm like, nope, take it easy. Go back to them, take their phone. Yeah. Not take it away, but literally be like, boop, drop it in their backpack in front of their face and say, this stays here. Let's get back to life. Come on. So trying to make sure that I work with myself and not flipping out whenever people are having a hard time. Yeah.
Commend your patience.
Trying to. And every day is a process. Some days I go home like, that was a great day. I did wonderful. And other days I'm like, that's it. I'm done with this job. But, it's just those emotions that I can't let out in the classroom coming out when I get home. Where's my dog? Give me a hug.
Yeah, I think the super important thing to recognize when you're struggling with things like ADHD is that it's not just affecting you. It affects a lot of the people around you, especially loved ones, close ones, people you spend a lot of time with. It's recognizing the fact that they also have to make a change in their life. And I would say if they care about you, it's okay to expect them to make that change. But you can't hold it against them if they're not ready to. And recognizing the fact that it's not your fault and it's also not their fault. It's something that everyone around you has to cope with. And recognize the fact that it also might be difficult for your parents to recognize that you're not slacking off on your chores because you're just dissing them, because like it's an actual like brain chemistry thing, and recognizing that it's also a process with coping with another person with ADHD and learning how to deal with them.
Taking in everyone's perspective.
Exactly, totally.
Yeah.
Perspective is a huge thing, and I think every concept. I mean, history is like,
Yeah.
what perspective are you learning from?
Yeah.
How does that affect what stories being told? I think that perspective is the most overlooked thing and the most important thing, that just in general. That's yeah.
Perspective. AHS Perspectives. No, I'm just kidding.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that great conversation, guys. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Honeywell?
No, I think I'm.
Thanks for your time.
satisfied.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is
I
great.
really
good.
like this, guys. Thank you for coming in. Yeah, the point of this, I really just want to have conversation and just
That's
share
always
perspectives
the start.
ultimately.
Yeah. Conversation's definitely how you get the ball rolling. So
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I like that. I think it also allows you to see the humanity in both sides of the agenda.
Mhm.
Well, not that we're like against each other,
Yeah.
but different like jobs. So obviously there's like, you're the teacher and I'm the student. It's understanding that there's difficulties with you and there's difficulties with me and all of that stuff. It's super important.
There are dynamics that have to be
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure.
recognized. All right. Well, I guess that does it for our second segment of AHS Perspectives. Thank you all for taking the time to listen. Stay tuned for the next segment. Not sure when exactly that will be, but stay updated. All right. Take care, everyone.